But now we're returning to what we learned for the last 3 days about how we can go out of the exile by simulating going out of the exile. In other words, one half of going out of the exile is what Hashem, God, is going to do for us. Excuse me 1 second. But we have to simulate that. We have to show that we're ready ourselves. In order to show that we're ready, as we have to serve God the way that God wants. What's the idea of serving God? Serving God means to change the world, to change ourselves, to change our emotions, to change our mind, our understanding, in learning Torah and doing the commandments. We can never underestimate, you can never overestimate, I guess, the importance of what the Torah is. There's never been an event in the history of the world that is even vaguely like the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Not the conquering of the world by who knows what, by Nebuchadnezzar or Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great or whoever did it, or the invention of the electric light bulb, or all these earth-shaking things are nothing like the giving of the Torah. Why? Because all these changes that have been made in the world, they didn't change the nature of man. They just improved the surroundings, cosmetic changes in the world. Even when the wheel was discovered, whatever, Neanderthal man or somebody, he discovered the wheel, and then some, whatever it is, what is it, Cro-Magnon and discovered fire, whatever you want to call, is the biggest inventions in the world. Nothing, everything is pale in comparison to the giving of the Torah. And in some ways, even the creation of the world itself. Because, okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but maybe not. Create the world itself without the Torah is like a body without a soul. It's like somebody gives a caveman, he gives him a computer and with no instructions. And a car, automobile, he doesn't know what to do with it. Electric light, isn't. The world without the Torah, you don't know what to do with the world. You don't know what to do with the world. The world without the Torah seems to be clear that there's no creator. There's the physical, there's the spiritual. The Torah, when God gave the Torah, as he showed that there's a creator that cares about his creation, cares about every detail. In Judaism, is not like any of the other religions at all. And our God is not like any of the other gods, which Ein Elokeinu. God gave the Torah to the Jews. 3 million eyewitnesses were there. They all saw and heard face to face God speak to them. And this was like 50 days after he took them out of Egypt and split the sea and did all these amazing, brought bread from heaven. So everybody knew that they were in the hands of the creator, that the creator cares, and that there is a creator, and that he creates the world and he controls nature. A creator, an invisible creator. And suddenly on Mount Sinai, everyone felt that there's a creator. And he felt that there's a creator, and they felt that there's a creator has a reason for the creation that's going on all the time. The creation is going on all the time. Everyone felt this. Don't ask me what this exactly the feeling is. I don't exactly know, but it was available to everybody in the world in the Holy Temple. That was in the Holy of Holies. And a little bit of a ray of this shined outside. But the point is that everyone felt that the Torah is the book of the creator of the universe that's creating us. Not a big angel or a big spiritual force or a big mystical entity or something like that. Everyone felt it. And that same Torah is the same Torah we have now. And it's no wonder that there's Torahs and the Jewish people have had so many enemies, because this is a very hard pill to swallow, that there's a creator that's creating us and everyone must act according to the creator's instructions. You must do it. Of course, you have free will, and the Jews, 50 days after they received the 40 days after they received the Torah, they worshiped the golden calf, which is like the worst sin you could possibly do. Exactly what God told them not to do, they did. So we still have free will, but nevertheless, the Jewish people are eternal. God is eternal. The Torah is eternal. Is eternal. And amazingly, you get other religions. A person leaves his religion, that's it. He's finished. But Judaism, not. A Jew can leave Judaism. He can whatever, and he still is a Jew. He still remains a Jew. He still identifies as a Jew. I was a Jew. My parents were Jews, but he won't leave the idea that he's a Jew. And that's because this is connected to the Creator himself, not even the Creator, but not just the Creator, but the reason for the creation. The Creator cares. And that's what happens every time we learn the Torah, but we have to wake up to that. But that's what it means. Kumilach, God is saying, wake up. You will see, Yafasi, my beloved, my beautiful one, Velechi lachem, go to yourself. We did this yesterday. Pirish, what does it mean? Go to yourself, Latzvacha, to yourself. God is saying, go to your true identity, who you are. It's not, stop being a normal person and start being a religious person. We're saying start being a normal creation of God, that he does what the Creator wants. And when a person realizes this, awakens inside of a person love, a tremendous new appreciation for life, that life is infinitely more meaningful than we could possibly imagine. It's not just this unexplainable chain of meaningless, whatever it is, the chemical and physical occurrences, combustions and reactions and actions, and it's just the whole thing is just a bunch of physics and what is it, carbon particles and that carbon, yeah. Key, because organic, the things that go on, but the whole thing is just, it's all mathematics and physics, and there's no human soul involved. No true absolute meaning to anything. Just here, it was just here. It was the big French philosophers were really big in this. There's no meaning, just accept it. The fact of the matter is, this is not so, and this is all in the Torah. That's the whole idea of the Torah, and learning the Torah. And learning the Torah implies that you have to really work, because the ideas in the Torah are sometimes very obscure and difficult to understand. Ki Yisrael, because when a Jew learns the Torah, this arouses the essence of the Jew, and the Jewish people are chosen to tell the whole world exactly what I just finished saying, and what the Rebbe is saying, that there's meaning in the world. There's a Creator in the world. The Creator loves you. The Creator cares about you. He gives you life. He gives you eyes, and he gives you responsibility. He's Yisrael, all about Machshava. The Jewish people, they rose up in God's thought first. Okay, and therefore, let me just get my pointer over here. Look, and there. Okay, and therefore, Kumilach, God is saying, wake up, raise yourself up, to be included in the oneness of the Creator. You're not a separate entity in yourself. You are being created by the Creator. The Creator loves you. He's embracing you. Similarly, when a Jew returns back to his true identity, so it happens by God. God reacts, the upper oneness of God, and God shines his face to the world. The world becomes a better world. Namely, what he's arousing simcha b'chedvas Hashem, that God is happy, tzavu panav, that God, so to speak, shines his face on the world. Like it says, your panav, like we ask God, your panav itanu, Sela, shine your face on us forever. Shah, Aras Panav, that the shining of God's face, who Itanu, should be with us. Va'al Yadenu, and by means of us, by means of the Jewish people, God shines his face to the whole entire world. Kafi Masha Anu, and how does God shine his face on the world? According to what we arouse, Bechinas his Galus Alakuso, we arouse the revelation of God in the world. So what it basically means, God is revealed in the world, that there's less addiction in the world, and that there's less confusion in the world, and that there's less aggression in the world, and less depression in the world, and less negative things, less negativity in the world. People feel happy to be alive. People feel challenged by life. Life doesn't get everybody down. Moshe Katuv, like it says, kamayim apanim apanim, like water face to face, right? When we reflect to God, the face we show to God, God shows to us. Okay, this is faith, of course. This is Jewish faith. We can't see things happening automatic. God is not an ATM machine. You smile at God, all of a sudden you win the lottery or something. But in a big general way, this is, of course, on God's terms, but that's the way it works. Behold, this ultimate completion will only be in the future. In the days of the Mashiach. That's how it was when the world was created, before Adam ate from the tree. When Adam ate from the tree, he covered over this goodness. And in the days of the Mashiach, it'll simply be revealed. Then it says, eye to eye, everyone will see godliness. Like it was in Mount Sinai, and even more. Because at the time of the giving of the Torah, it was only temporary. And it was only in one little place. Which is not the case in the days of the Mashiach. Then there'll be revelation of God forever, the Olamei Olamim, without stopping. A little bit of an example of this was in the 6-Day War. After the 6-Day War, that Israel beat all of its enemies, and just the odds were stacked against it 1,000,000 to 1. And Israel beat all of its enemies. Every rocket that they shot was exact and destroyed the whole, the armies and the air forces of Syria and whatever. And the whole thing was just miraculous. The whole world suddenly realized that there was God. Suddenly, the whole entire world, anyone that read about this in the papers, knew that this was the hand of God. This was definitely not, and the whole world respected. Then the Israeli government kicked in, and they said, "What are you talking about? It was just lucky shots, and it's our soldiers. We got the best army in the world. We got the best this in the world." Right? So they cooled everybody down. But the fact of the matter is that after the 6-Day War, at least for a couple of weeks, whatever, as and the world was just astounded. Everybody knew that the Jews were God's people, and that God exists. How this exactly was, it was a first impression that everybody had. Like I say, the Israeli government immediately, and they're very big experts on this, because they believe it themselves. There's no God and there's no this, and they calmed everybody down. But the fact of the matter is there was a little glimpse of what happened, that a lot of Jews woke up to being Jews. Jews woke up to being Jews, despite the efforts of the Israeli press and academia and all this stuff. A lot of Jews suddenly they started putting on tefillin and things like that, and that's happening now also. The only thing is now the whole world is against us, but we'll see. The whole thing is going to change in one instant. Nevertheless, the point is that when everyone realizes that the God of Israel is creating the world, and he is the one that's giving the Torah, and the Torah is the instruction book for the whole world, then all of this aggression is going to stop. The aggression will stop. And when the aggression stops, then it's going to be a good world. It's going to be a good world. People will say, what are we going to do with all this money, with all that we put into arms? And, the definition of a real man is not going to be somebody that goes out and rapes and murders. That's a real mensch. That's not going to be anymore. It's not going to be. All these negative, terrible ideas which are dominating the world won't be dominating anymore. It'll be an option. People can still do it. Nobody's going to do it. Zero, that's what it means, Sela. That's what it means, that God will shine his face on us, Sela, constantly. Shehu Lashon Netzach, forever. Forever, and every place. Every place will feel that they're being created, and that God is infinitely good. And that as it is, we're not using our potential to do good and to say good and to think good. There'll be better music and better literature and everything will be better. Everything will be more human. In the time of exile, there has to be a lot of work. And Yagia Rabbah, we're talking to the Jews, they have to work hard and make a big effort, to put into his heart this joy. in God through the Torah. That means of learning Torah. Libun hilchasa, by learning the Torah, Masha'enkin, which is not the case in the days of the Mashiach. Then all flesh will see together. Became also the same thing in Avavud Basada. This is the Breita. We said that also not just learning the laws, but also to learn the Talmud, the reason for the laws. A Breita, this is Labar. Breita, this is the aspect. Generally speaking, there's the definition of the Breita is there's the Mishnah and the Breita. There was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi after the temple was destroyed, so he saw that people were starting to forget the Torah. So he had a tremendous, phenomenal memory, and he remembered everything. So he gathered together also the rabbis that were there, and they went over all of the Mishnahs. Those are basic formulas of laws regarding everything in the Torah, every aspect of life. And he gathered them together. Some of them he included in his book; those were called Mishnah, and some of them he did not include in his book. That those were called Breita. But there's also another meaning of Breita, and that's all the explanations of the rabbis that came afterwards, which are written in the Talmud. That's also a Breita. So the Breita comes to explain the Mishnah. A Mishnah is called Evorim Panimim. The Mishnah, that's called like the inner limbs of God's will, like the heart and the call davar shehu shanui b'Breita, and everything that's learned in the Breita. This is like it's hinted at in the Mishnah. Kamo she'omer Ilfa. Ilfa was one of the Tanaim. He was in the days of this. I guess he was a Tana. Maybe he was one of the first Amoraim. Could it be? He was in the generation of Rabbi Yochanan. In any case, so he said, Ilfa said, this is right. This is like right. He was a pupil of Rabbeinu HaKodesh, the one that wrote the Mishnah down. He said, "Man deshali Breita, anyone that asks me a question from a Breita, ask me a question that can only be answered from a Breita, and I can answer it from a Mishnah." What does that mean? Perish, what does it mean? Pashtina milashan pshat. Like pashat yado, like he's sticking out your hand. Let me, maybe you can explain it a little bit like this. Maybe, I don't know. Everybody in your brain, you have like brain waves and things like that. Let's say that there was a doctor that he could analyze in a person's brain, right? Like he could analyze in a person's brain. Let's say you have a great musician, right? A great musician. You have whatever it is Mahler, right? Gustav Mahler, fantastic business, and he could look in this brain and see every symphony that he wrote. Every symphony was there. It is in his brain. You can see that little note, see that little thing over there. Every little thing I can see what it is. Right? You look in Shakespeare's brain and see every little word from every play and everything. You can say, like, who could do a thing like that? Doesn't make any sense. He says, well, that's what Ilfa did, basically. He said, I can look in a Mishnah, which Mishnahs are just very, very terse and very, very small, and I can tell all of the laws that are going to come out of it, all the explanations in the Breita. That's what Ilfa said. Man deshali b'Breita, a person that asked me a question that can only be answered from a Breita below Pashta, and I can find it in a Mishnah. I can show you. Here's what Pashta, what does it mean? You could bring it out, like sticking out. Pashta means just like sticking out your hand. Listen, Hoshata yada. But Omer, he said, she yoshed et yada in Mishnah, so he could bring out from a Mishnah the Ba'ir to explain a law which is only explained in great detail in the Breita. Below Yetzorach, and he didn't have to learn the Breita on its own. Because the Mishnah is very, very small. It's like a little seed. And from the seed, he could tell the seed a little law, which is in very seed form, very, very code form. And he could explain all the details that are going to come out of it. In other words, how could you do this? Because the Torah comes from God. And so everything, like all the world comes from God. All being comes from God. And the prophets, there are people that are prophets. Prophets, they had an ability to be aware of the source of all events in the world, so they could tell what was going to happen. So this Ilfa, he could look into the source of the Torah and tell all of the details that are going to come out of it. In other words, it was a concentrated aspect of godliness. That's the point. It was a high level of godliness and sensitivity to godliness that he had, that he could tell all of the laws that came from one little innuendo. It says it's something like the same thing that Rabbi Akiva was able to learn from the little, if you look in a Sefer Torah, you could see that the letters are written on the top of the letters. It's also in tefillin and in mezuzahs. On the top of the letters, there's little lines, little tiny lines. They're called tagim. They're called crowns on top of the letters. It looks like the little letter of vav or a zion on the top of the letters. Sometimes there's three. So it says that Rabbi Akiva could learn laws from those little tagim, from those little Rabbi Akiva could. So in other words, you could see, because the whole Torah comes from God, it's not arbitrary. So by looking deep into the source, you could come out to the result. But not everybody is able to do this. That's the name of Ilfa. His name indicates a little bit on this ability. Therefore, he's called Ilfa from the language of Aleph HaChachma, Aleph HaChabina. God said, I will teach you wisdom, I will teach you understanding. He was able to see the laws, how they are in their source. So he could look at a Mishnah, which was this more representative of the source of the law, and he could tell all the details that are going to come out. Looking at maybe, and therefore we could understand the Breita from the Mishnah. Well, we have to learn. We can't do it so easily. We're not at such a high, pure level. We have to work at the Breita. We have to learn in the Talmud, and we have to learn that from the Mishnah. We have to learn the Lasok Badina Breita from the Mishnah. We have to learn both. We have to learn also all the details themselves. We can't, our intuition doesn't tell us what the law is going to be. We have to learn it. That's why did God make it that way? So that we would work. We would work at learning the Torah. That's what's called all the work in the field. Again, let's go back to our theme. Our theme is that the things that the Jews did in Egypt as hard work, as part of their servitude, those things we have to do now, and that just like back then, they did it as servitude and in order to get them out of Egypt. It wasn't in order to, it was a preface to them getting out of Egypt. Now we have to do the same thing they did back then, but we have to do it in order to get out of the exile that we're in now. So we said they worked at Chomer Bilvenim. Chomer is Kol v'Chomer and Libun Hilchasat, to learn the laws. And then it says all the work in the Sada. The Sada, that's the Breita bar, means outside. This is like Mashal Shemevi Chitim Betoch Habayis V'Zorea B'Sada Michutz. This is like a person that brings the grains into his house, but he plants them in the fields outside of the city. Also the same thing, you work in the Breita, that's like in the fields, in the Dina Shinoi B'Misnisan, in laws that were taught in the Mishnah. In other words, the Mishnah is like the seed, and the field of grain is the Breita. Okay, so what's the point is? The point is learning Torah itself refines the world, purifies the world, makes the world more a vessel to receive godliness. And nowadays we have a lot of Torah to learn. That's the idea of learning the Talmud. You read the whole purpose of this coming of the soul into the body and learning the Torah is for Aliyah Gedola, a tremendous elevation. Sheyoyer or Hashem, that will shine the light of God in a revealed way in the days of the Mashiach. That's the reason why we're learning the Torah and doing such. So if you see these big yeshivas where there's boys, I mean, that was a big, how do you say, contention, point of contention in Israel, especially in Israel. Israel was founded mainly by Jews that didn't want anything to do with Judaism. And we're saying the whole holiness of Judaism comes from the Torah and learning the Torah. And these people thought the biggest waste of time you could possibly have is learning the Torah. The real, accomplishment is being in the army. Now, being in the army is good. No one says it's not good. You have to have an army. It's a wonderful thing. And you need an army. And there was always an army. And the Jewish people, whenever they could have an army, they had an army. But learning Torah is certainly no less important than the two of them together. So you have to. So the Rebbe is saying, an army, you have to have an army. We have physical enemies. They're not going to be done. You sit and learn Torah. It's not going to get rid of our enemies. But you can never minimize the importance don't minimize the importance of learning Torah. Don't think that learning Torah is a secondary thing. It says that King David used to learn Torah, and that Yoav, his whatever it is, his commander in chief, would win battles. And because of King David's learning Torah, as Joab would win battles. And because Joab won battles, so David was able to learn Torah. He didn't have to go out and fight himself. But here the Rebbe is trying to stress, being in the army and winning battles, that everybody understands is a necessary thing. But learning Torah, people do not realize the tremendous importance that there is to learning the Torah. That's what makes godliness in the world, that changes the world, that makes the world a better world. So that the physical things that we do, which God wants us to be in the world, the Jews got a very big punishment because they wanted to sit in the desert and learn Torah and not coming into the land of Israel. That was the whole idea of the spies, of the Parshas Shalach. The Jews got out of Egypt, and Moses said, okay, let's go into the land of Israel. And they said, we don't want to go in. We want to stay in the desert. Here we have bread from heaven. We have water from a rock. We're protected from our enemies. We can sit and learn Torah. We learn the spiritual. And God got very angry at them. Said, oh, you want to stay in the desert? So you'll wander around for 40 years until you're all dead. That's what God said. So just sitting and learning Torah and being removed from the world is definitely not the goal of the creation. We have to be in the world. We have to be in Eretz Israel. We have to work on the land. We have this. But that does in no way minimize the importance of the Torah. Exactly the opposite. The whole purpose of reading the Torah, learning the Torah, is in order to refine the world. The world is the main thing, not to go to heaven. Now we're going back to our original sentence that this mimer is based on. But that's the name of the mimer. Remember this? Let's go back for 1 second. Let's just go back for 1 second so we don't forget what this is. The theme of this whole mimer here was. Where is it? Here. Thank God we got a lot of accomplishment. Here we go. Here, see? This is the name of this mimer. It's called Dodi, the sound of my beloved. Zebo midalig al harim is jumping over the mountains, mekafetz, and skipping over the hills. That's what King King Solomon said in Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, right? And now we're explaining this. That this is talking about the going out of Egypt. It jumped over us because the Jewish people were supposed to be in God said you're going to be there for 400 years and 400, whatever is 30 years. And instead it made God jumped over and he made it only 210 years, we said. And now we're talking about this work that they did do in Egypt and how this is telling us that we have to do the same work now in order to get out of the exile. And the main work up to now we've learned is learning Torah. That's what we said up to now. The main thing is learning Torah. Okay, now let's go back to this. 1 second. Here we go. Working at the Torah. A second. Oh, that's right. You have to do it this. 1 second. Oh. That's what I mean. It's called Dodi, the sound of my beloved. It is jumping over the mountains, we said, right? This is talking about the called Dodi here. This is King Solomon speaking, and he's talking about God. God from above to below. God is coming down and he's doing all these things for us, which that's sort of the normal way things are done, right? God is creating the world, he's creating us. But sometimes God gives these big blessings and he jumps over the mountains. What does it mean? It's like a person that jumps from one mountain to another. And by means of this, he can make a lot of progress at one time. Also these upper mountains. What is this? These high spiritual levels. Chesed of Atzilus, what's called the chesed, the kindness, God's love of the world of Atzilut. Atzilut is another name for God. in this case. The highest aspect of God, God's 10th spirit. Anyway, this is the love of God, which is the love of Hashem, mamash, really the love of God. The Gilui Rav, it jumps over the mountains. It is revealed with a tremendous revelation. The eteruta de latata, this is an arousal from God from above, an inspiration to us, right? But where does it come from? What arouses God to make this big change in the world? That's what we're really hoping for coming of the Mashiach, right? Like we said before, the world will be a better world. How is it going to be that God, the Creator, is going to reveal more of Himself, that we're going to see we're not alone? But how has this happened? By means of an eteruta de latata, an arousal from below. That God Himself jumps down from these high, tremendously level, down to this physical world because of what we do down here, even though there's a lot of different levels between them. So we, by doing a simple good deed down here, or learning the Torah down here, or doing a commandment down here, we can cause God to jump from the mountains, which is the God's chesed of Atzilut, the God's kindness of the world of Atzilut, to jump all the way down here. And also Makafah skipping over the hills. What's the hills? The hills, this is represented by the mothers. And the mothers, the Surah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, they receive from the mountains. The mountains are the fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What does this mean? What does it mean, the hills? So again, jumping from the mountains means that if we love God, then God will jump down from the upper worlds down to us. That's because we're like mountains. We're like the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We've achieved something. We're loving God. We're learning the Torah. We're doing something. That's God jumps from His mountain down here to our mountain. What does it mean that He skips over the hills? The hills, this is talking about a people that, the receivers, even people that haven't got this love, people that are not haven't achieved anything in Torah or prayer or learning the mitzvahs, but B'panei Sharo, because he sees and he hears the prayers of other people, this arouses in him also. There are Jews that they don't have the ability to learn Torah, but they see a great Torah scholar, a Rosh Yeshiva, how he's a nice person and he explains ideas in the Torah, wonderful, and it just knocks him out totally. As he becomes also, he's also becomes a receptacle for godliness, open for godliness. That's when he's jumping over the hills. The hills are people that have not achieved so much. They don't know how to pray. They don't get excited when they pray. They don't know what it means. They just don't. It says, don't worry, because they get excited by other people. They see somebody else that is praying to God genuinely, right? That you see the person, you can tell if somebody's just faking it or whatever. They're genuinely praying to God. Then this inspires him also. So this also makes him a vessel for godliness. So it says God jumps down. If you do good deeds and you learn Torah and you pray with all of your heart and all of your mind, then God will, so to speak, give a big blessing and improve the whole world in your merit. And also, what if you don't have all those big merits? It says you just would like to. You just you long for having something like you see it's a good thing. That's also good. Everyone according to his ability. Hine Omer Rizal, the rabbis say, Al Gimel Devorim Olam Omer. The idea is not so much your accomplishments as your desire. Your desire, right? Your, how do you say it? Your honesty. There's a better word for it. Your efforts. Let's say this: the efforts are the main things, not so much the accomplishments. But accomplishments are very good. The whole goal, the whole thing is to be accomplished. But what if you don't accomplish? So God says, listen, your efforts are as important to me as the accomplishments of somebody else. Says the Rebbe that we're talking, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? We're talking about being aware of the fact that we are now in exile. And exile means that our potential for good is not revealed. We have infinite potential for good. Every human being does, and this is not being revealed. We're not even thinking about, we don't even think it's possible. We don't even think it exists, because that's what exile is. And when the Creator is revealed, then everyone starts to feel this potential. And not only that, the potential to do good could be in the most simple things. I mean, the most simple things. It doesn't mean you have to be, your name is in the papers and you invented something, or you're an amazing composer, or you're the president, you won, you're the champion, you're in the top, you're standing first place. That's alive. Not so. That's not so. That's not a bad thing. But the purpose of life is not to succeed in everybody else's eyes. The purpose of life is to succeed in God's eyes. And sometimes that can mean just being an honest person, just saying hello to somebody, just dealing with life's problems and challenges in an honest, in a proper way, right? Sometimes it's better to be a loser and do it honestly than to be a winner and to do it crookedly. Right, to be one of those people that suffered at the hands of, the communists or of the Nazis, to be than to be the communists and the Nazis themselves, and be the ones that are succeeding in this, because the world goes according to God's standards, not according to people's standards, not according to those. So it could be some simple, whatever it is, Mongolian person that didn't want to have anything to do with Genghis Khan conquering the world. That was an amazing accomplishment, more than Genghis Khan conquering the whole, what is it, Northern Hemisphere, or whatever he did. Because our interaction is between us and God. I mean, it's good also if people like you, if people, that's a good thing, but that's not the goal. So that's what it seems. Even a person that doesn't have this big love of God on his own, but because he sees and he hears other people pray, and he wants that, so that Hine Omer Zal, the rabbi, say on three things the world stands: on Torah and Avoda, which is prayer, and on Gemilas Chasadim, and doing good deeds, kindness. They are Tikkun Midas. This fixes up a person's personality. Shebein Adam Lamakom, between a person, your personality, between you and God, and also between you and other people. In Torah and prayer, we already explained how it is. That we are in exile. Oh, one minute. Yeah, the Torah and prayer, we already explained in the pasuk. We already explained from the sentence about Libun Hilchasa, learning Torah and doing commandments, having more love for God, working in the field. We talked about that. But now the Torah is also coming to explain Tikkun Midos. That you do holy things. You learn the Torah, you do the commandments, you do the prayers. That's wonderful. What about being a mensch, being a human being, being a good person? This is called This, it says later on in the sentence, says that the Jews worked in the field, they worked at Homer, Bilavanim. We explained all these things, right? But then it says also, all of the Jews were forced to do all of the service that they did in them. What does it mean? The service of serving God means that you have to have a nice personality also. True, the relationship is between you and God. But part of being to you and God is, God is creating all these people. And part of serving God is to be nice to people and to act properly to people and from people. We'll see. That by working with other people and thinking with other people, this fixes up a person's personality. Therefore, it's Torah Or, you have to have a big effort to change your personality, so that you don't get angry and you're not have all sorts of desires and lusts, and you don't get all disappointed and vindictive and have whatever is that, what's it called, the jealousy and things like that. A person has to change his nature. This is called avoda milashon orot. Ibudim. This is called avoda. Avoda means to serve God, but the word avoda also means like to tan. You have I mean, are you wearing shoes? You have a pair of shoes on. You have a pair of shoes. Most people wear shoes. Shoes are made of leather. You know how impossible it is to make from a cow leather a pair of shoes. You take a cow, take a cow that died, strip the leather off, right? Cut it into the shape of a shoe. In a couple of days, it's hard like a rock. You can't put your foot into it. If you do, you won't get your foot out of it. It doesn't bend when you walk. It does. Maybe it's good for making, like, what are they making over there in Holland? Those wooden shoes they have that you could make from. How in the world do you make from leather, which if you leave it out, it becomes hard like a rock? How can you make pliable shoes or lahavdil to make a mezuzah or a sefer Torah that you roll up? How do you do that? Nowadays they can make shirts, pants from leather. How? There's a process which is called tanning. In Hebrew, it's called Ibud. You take the hide, which itself is not pliable and is not workable, and you put it into whatever substance there is. You put it into something, and it softens it up permanently. And that's called Ibud. You change the nature of something. Well, that's what's called Avodat Hashem. Ibud, you have to tan your personality. You have to make yourself more pliable and workable. Change your nature. You have to work on your personality. Don't think that whatever you feel and however you react is okay. That should be fixed up to God alone. How do you do this? This is what it says, Baporech. You have to serve God Baporech. What's it mean, Baporech? Avodas Perech, Perech. Porech means hard work. The word Perech means two different things, right? Avodat Perech. Echad, one is Torech, a big work. You have to work on yourself. Malacha Kaveda. And that you don't get mad at people, that you don't get depressed, that you don't get jealous. This is a tremendous, people that have a nature to get mad or to get jealous or to get addicted to things. You have to lust, you have to do this. Very, very difficult to change, but it's possible to change, and you have to work hard. Lomi Pnei Kavdos, not because it's so hard to do, but it's like the rabbis say that Paro. What does it mean? It says that he made the Jews work, but Avodat Perech. Said he made the Jews work with hard work. What does it say? That he gave the work of women to men and the work of men to women. Now you can understand the work of men to women. A woman has to go out and dig ditches. That's hard. Women don't have such big muscles. They can't work all the time. Good. If they work at it, maybe they can work themselves up. But to give, it says that they made the men do women's work. Oh, that was really hard. What's so hard about it? To sit in the house and knit, to clean up the house. That's such a big deal? It says because this is even though the work of women is easier than the work of men, but nevertheless, this is called backbreaking work. Perech. Why? It's called Kaveda was difficult because they had to change their nature. The man, instead of going out in the street, out into the fields and working hard in the fields, as every day he had to sit home and he had to clean up the house and to cook the meals and to do this. All right. And good, okay, you can get used to it. Of course you can get used to it. But a woman can also get used to working out in the fields. She can also get used to it. But it takes the man as much time to get used to being a cook and to do all these things, these woman things, right? As long as it takes him to get, for a woman also to get used to doing manly things. And similarly, so that's how we change our nature. What that's called avoda. Avoda is changing your nature. It's called avodas perach. It's hard. To change your nature is a hard thing to do. Right? To not get angry when it's a very, very difficult thing. Because it jumps on a person. All of a sudden, a person, something happens, a person gets angry, somebody cuts you off when you're driving, you get all angry. And so you can work on it. Don't stay angry so long. Making excuses for other people. Think, listen, if you would cut somebody else off, then I wouldn't get angry. But you have to think about that, and thinking takes time. And anger is immediate. So how do you fix yourself up? You have to work on yourself. Gradually, you change your nature. Now, you might think that not getting angry is the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is do nothing. That's all you do is do nothing, right? Somebody calls you a name, you don't get angry. You just, treat it like you called somebody else. It should be the easiest thing in the world, but it's not. Now, for a person to change his nature is very, very difficult. For a person to stop being lazy and stop making excuses or stop finding faults in other people, right? And some people can stop immediately, but other people, it's so ingrained in their personality to find something bad in other people to this, that it's a tremendous effort for them to do. That's what it says, to make the men do women's work, even though it's easier physically, but to change your nature is very difficult. But Cain and also Benyani Tikuni Amidos, love and fear. Shebein Adam Lamakom, and also to change between you and God, to really come to love God and to really fear God, see how important God is. Is whether we're talking about turning from bad or doing good. Usually turning from bad comes from fear, right? I don't want to do this because I'm afraid of going against God. Or doing good, I love God, therefore I do good. You also have to change your nature, that when you do something for God, you do a commandment, it's really because you love God. You feel a tremendous appreciation of God. When you're turning from bad, it's because you hate the bad, you hate what God hates. Well, pirish, what does it mean? That's one explanation. One explanation. Another explanation is perach. You want to change your nature? Close your mouth. Close your mouth. That'll change your nature. Zo, you see, a person to put this to your heart. Kashomo kas, for instance, anger, jealousy, godless. How do you say competition, romamus, egotism, haughtiness, one person over the other. Zeklal, this is a general principle. Mina rach yashiv chema. A quiet answer turns away anger. Anger. The simple meaning is it turns away anger. Somebody comes up to you and they scream at you, you're an idiot, you're a fool, you're this, and they're angry at you, and you say, okay, my friend, I accept what you say. I accept you. You're calm, it calms the other guy down. That's one meaning. But here's another meaning is not only the anger of the other person, also your anger. Famous, well-known thing, count to 10. If you're angry, count to 10. What does it mean? Why are you counting to 10? What does that mean? Because you don't express your anger immediately. As if you don't express it immediately, you took away 90% of your anger. Because the whole thing of getting anger or having lust or the being vindictive or finding fault on other people, it's that first second. It kicks in, your emotions. Oh, if you cannot listen to that first second, you can control yourself the first second, then that takes away the edge. That takes away the power. That's what he says. Mina rach, and don't talk. Close your mouth. You have an anger at somebody, don't say anything. You have a big lust for something, keep it quiet, right? You want to say something bad about somebody? Good. Hainu, kalamitos, all the bad character traits that a person has between a person, shiasodam, comes from gavura. Comes from gavura. Gavura means wanting to succeed. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be greater. I'm raising myself up. I'm like fire, like gavura. It says that you put out the fire, is that changes your nature from a bad nature to being a pliable nature. That's called Ibud, to work on yourself. And then it's possible for you to come to love God and fear God. But first of all, you have to stop loving yourself so much and fearing for yourself so much. Those who understand will understand. So what do we learn over here? That God jumps from the mountains, jumps over the hills, means that if we do good down in this world, especially we're talking about learning the Torah, doing the commandments, and here the Rebbe is saying even changing your nature, then God will jump down from the highest places. And what if we don't, but you just want to, you're not able to, you try? If you're genuinely trying, God also jumps down. But the point is that God reacts to what we do. And this was begun when God took the Jews out of Egypt and he gave them the Torah. That God did all on his own. And he gave us the power, empowered us, that from then on, what we do or even truly desire to do, if it's good, if it's in the world of Torah and the commandments, then God reacts to that and he jumps down from the mountains to us and will bring Mashiach. No. Now let's learn the Devar Malchut.